Something significant is changing in legal practice, not at the edges, at the center of how legal work gets done. And the lawyers who notice it early and respond deliberately have an advantage over the ones who notice it late and respond reactively. This episode is not about prompts or workflows. There's plenty of that on this channel. This episode is about what the shift to AI in legal practice means for the skills worth developing, what's becoming less valuable, what's becoming more valuable, and what the lawyer who's on the right side of this shift actually looks like. I want to be honest about what's happening, rather than reassuring. The reassuring version of this conversation, AI will never replace lawyers, don't worry, isn't useful. The honest version is more complicated and more interesting, and ultimately more optimistic for the lawyers who are paying attention. Let's start with the honest answer about what AI is actually replacing in legal practice. Because the answer is significant, and pretending it isn't doesn't help anyone. AI is replacing specific tasks, not lawyers. But the distinction only holds if you're clear about which tasks, and some of those tasks are ones that currently take up a significant portion of lawyer time, particularly at the junior end of the profession. Reading a long document to find the relevant clause is being automated. Extracting obligations, defined terms, dates, and deadlines from a complex agreement is being automated. Producing a first draft of a standard document, an NDA, a standard letter, a file note, is being automated. Matter orientation, reading a file to understand where a matter is up to before a call or a meeting, is being automated. These are tasks that fill a significant portion of junior lawyer time right now. Claude can do all of them, faster, more consistently, and without the fatigue that makes a junior's third document review of the day less thorough than the first. This is not a reason to panic. It's a reason to be clear about what's happening so you can respond to it deliberately. The lawyers who acknowledge this and deliberately develop the skills that sit above these tasks will be more valuable than they would have been without AI. The lawyers who don't will find the transition harder. Now for the things that make a lawyer irreplaceable. And the reason I said the honest answer is ultimately more optimistic. Claude has no stake in the outcome. It doesn't care if the advice is wrong, the clause is weak, or the submission fails. It has no motivation to tell a client something they don't want to hear in a way that maintains the relationship. It has no understanding of what this specific client values most, what their risk appetite is, or what they've been through in previous matters. Professional judgment is not being automated. The decision about whether a risk is acceptable for this client in this transaction at this moment, that decision requires knowing the client, the relationship, the commercial context, and the professional consequences of getting it wrong. Claude can identify the risk and help structure the analysis. It cannot decide whether to accept the risk. That decision belongs to a lawyer who is professionally accountable for it. Client relationship is not being automated. The read of a room, the sense of what a client is holding back, the ability to deliver bad news in a way that maintains trust and keeps the relationship intact. The long-term relationship that means a client calls you before they call anyone else when something goes wrong. None of this transfers to an AI system, and clients know it. Professional accountability is not being automated. When something goes wrong, a lawyer is accountable. Claude is not accountable for anything. You are accountable for everything that goes out under your name, regardless of how it was produced. That accountability is not a burden AI removes. It is the thing that makes legal advice worth paying for. The client is paying for a professional who carries the responsibility. That's the product. So, what skills compound in an AI world? What should a lawyer who's paying attention be deliberately developing right now? 4 skills. None of them are technical. All of them are learnable. And all of them make AI work harder for you the better you develop them. The first is verification literacy. Not just knowing that AI can hallucinate. Most lawyers know that by now. But understanding how AI systems fail specifically. Where in a legal document the fabricated citation is most likely to sit. What a confident-sounding output looks like when it's wrong. which checks catch which failure modes and in what order. This is a learnable skill, not a technical qualification. The lawyers who develop it produce more reliable output, carry less professional risk, and have a defensible standard of care that holds up to scrutiny. The second is briefing precision. The ability to translate a complex legal matter into a tight, specific instruction that produces genuinely useful output. Vague briefs produce vague output. Precise briefs, the 6 elements covered extensively on this channel, produce output you can actually use. This skill scales significantly. 2 lawyers using exactly the same AI tool get very different results based on the quality of the brief. The lawyer who can brief precisely gets dramatically better output than the one who can't, using exactly the same tool. The third is judgment under uncertainty. What to do when the AI output is plausible but wrong. When the verify flag appears on the central proposition of the advice. When Claude characterizes a clause as standard and your instinct says it isn't. The ability to interrogate AI output rather than accept it, to apply professional judgment to something that looks authoritative but needs checking, is what separates the lawyers using AI well from the ones creating liability without realizing it. The fourth is AI supervision. Reviewing Claude-assisted work produced by juniors, and knowing what to look for that isn't in the standard supervision checklist. The confident inaccuracy with no verify flag. The factual drift from the source documents. The gap read failure. What should be there that isn't. Senior lawyers who develop this skill can deploy Claude across their team without the professional risk sitting entirely with them. That's a meaningful advantage at a firm level. There is a fifth skill worth talking about separately because it surprises most lawyers when they hear it. Writing. Human writing. Getting more valuable, not less. This sounds counterintuitive because Claude drafts. It produces well-structured, professional-sounding text quickly. So how does the ability to write become more valuable when AI can produce a draft in 2 minutes? Because AI drafting output is generic. It produces what the patterns in its training suggest should follow, not what this specific situation, this specific client, and this specific matter actually call for. The gap between a good Claude draft and an excellent document is the gap between what the patterns predict and what professional judgment knows. The lawyer who can close that gap, who can read a Claude draft and know exactly what needs to change and why, is more valuable than they would have been when everyone was starting from scratch. There's also a more uncomfortable version of this observation. The lawyers who were always good writers, who could produce a client letter that read as though it was written specifically for that client, in that situation, at that moment, will find that AI drafting frees them to focus on the judgment and communication work they've always been best at. The lawyers whose writing was always template dependent, who produced competent but impersonal documents, will find that AI output looks a lot like what they were producing. And there's less room to hide in that difference. Invest in writing. Not learning to prompt AI to write for you, learning to write well yourself. Because that skill compounds as AI handles more of the baseline drafting and the human judgment at the top of the process becomes more visible. The question that pulls all of this together is a simple one. Are you building skills that AI amplifies or skills that AI replaces? The skills AI replaces are the ones that are fundamentally about processing, reading to find, extracting manually, producing routine first drafts. These tasks will be done faster and more consistently by AI than by a junior lawyer within the next 2 to 3 years. Building your value around the speed and thoroughness of that processing is a narrowing position. AI is faster and more consistent, and it doesn't bill by the hour. The skills AI amplifies are the ones that sit above that processing layer. Verification literacy, knowing how the system fails and how to catch it. Briefing precision, getting dramatically better output from the same tool. Professional judgment on AI output, interrogating rather than accepting. Client communication that requires knowing this specific client. Strategic advice that requires knowing this specific matter. The ability to supervise AI-assisted work with an informed eye. All of these make AI work harder for you the better you develop them. The time advantage is real. The lawyers who develop these skills now, while AI is still new enough that most of their peers haven't fully engaged with it, will have a genuine advantage as AI becomes standard practice across the profession. That window isn't infinite, but it's open right now. What does the lawyer on the right side of this shift actually look like in practice? They're not the lawyer who uses AI the most. Heavy use without the right skills doesn't produce better outcomes. It produces more output of variable quality. The agile lawyer is the one who uses AI most intelligently, who knows where it adds value and where it doesn't, who has developed the skills that sit above what AI can do, so they can extract maximum value from what AI does do. They brief Claude precisely rather than vaguely. They verify the output systematically rather than cursorily. They review AI-assisted work from juniors knowing what to look for. They focus the time they've recovered on the judgment work, the client conversation, the strategic advice, the advocacy, rather than filling it with more routine tasks. Their practice looks different from the outside. Faster on the reading and drafting work that used to take the most time. More thorough on verification because they have a system rather than a habit. More present in client conversations because they're not reconstructing context from scratch. Producing better quality output because the structured review runs consistently. And the honest optimism, the lawyers who are agile about this shift, who welcome it rather than resist it, who develop the relevant skills rather than hoping the transition doesn't affect them, are going to have a significantly better practice in 5 years than the ones who don't. That isn't hype. That's what happens when you're early to a genuine shift and you respond to it deliberately. The shift is happening. The question is whether you're building toward it or away from it. Verification literacy, briefing precision, judgment under uncertainty, AI supervision, human writing. These are the skills that compound in an AI world. They're all learnable. None of them require a technical background. All of them make you more valuable as a lawyer, not less. The window for developing them, while most of your peers haven't, is open right now. That's the episode. See you in the next one.